Welcome to the Jameson Files. I'm Carrie Weber. We're so glad that you're joining us for another episode. Thanks so much for being a part of our Jameson Files community. If you haven't already subscribed to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, I invite you to do so and help us spread the word. You can listen to the Jameson Files on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. You can also find us right here on the Jameson Facebook page or on our Jameson YouTube page. Wherever you prefer to listen or watch educational content, we'll be there. And we would love to have you contributing your ideas, your requests for topics in the future so that we can continue to create and provide information, guests, and content that's relevant to you and your dental journey. Today, I'm so glad to be joined once again by my teammate and Jameson's Chief Marketing Officer, Nate Porter. Hi, Nate.
Hey.
And I'm so glad that he's back with me because today we're going to be talking about a very, very popular topic in dental marketing, and that's your website. Specifically, some of the things to be leery of and aware of that we don't want to have happening in our websites in today's times, in 2021 and in the future. So, what we're going to talk about today are things to avoid with your dental website. So if you're taking a look these days at your website and curious how you can make it better, also we want to make sure that we're looking at the things that we don't want to have happening or that might be missing in your website today that needs attention. So Nate, let's talk about the 3 things to avoid in your dental website today.
Yeah. So I tried to pick some things that were really unique to 2021. Yeah. So it seems like every few years there's something that changes or shifts in the web, and web standards. And 10 years ago we were talking about mobile responsiveness, and we're talking about things being good for mobile and all of that, and that's kind of continued in a way where now we have Core Web Vitals, which is Google's tools to identify how your website performs on different devices and things like that. And so that was something that we talked about a lot, but especially I feel like this is the first one that I want to talk about is kind of unique to something I saw a lot during COVID. Okay. And that's interstitial screens or pop-ups. So when you when Google identifies that when someone comes to your website, there's something blocking their user experience, they can penalize your website for that.
So what do you mean? What do you mean by that? I mean, what do you mean by a pop-up in this respect?
Well, so there's a couple of different examples I see a lot. One is simply a notice about COVID changes,
right.
Where you see on a lot of websites where it's like here's what you can expect during COVID, or Office is taking these other precautions and whatever. Yes. And it's blocking the user from seeing the website because it's kind of covering the screen because of that. And that's something that's useful, and Google doesn't mind if you do that for a couple of weeks. But if it's a year later and you still have that on your website, you're getting crushed in terms of how you're being displayed on Google.
So how are they penalizing you if you've had that kind of function on for too long?
So Google looks at and there's nobody knows exactly how things are weighted, but certainly on mobile devices they do penalize anything that's going to interfere with someone seeing or engaging with your website content.
Right.
And there's different levels. So another example of that too is something that I've been seeing an explosion of recently, which is these chat tools. So you see these chat tools where you visit the website and this chat tool takes up 30% or even sometimes close to 100% of the screen, especially on mobile, and it's interfering with your ability to engage with the site.
Okay.
And so that's another thing that can be penalized. So it's fine to have chat tools on your website. They just shouldn't take up the screen. They should ideally load in a minimized view.
What's your preference when you see that kind of function? How do you prefer? How do you feel like it works the best?
So you when you think about Google's algorithm is always going to follow what's best for the user. So you don't have to necessarily be a scientist or researcher to know, you just have to think about things from a patient's experience.
Yes.
And so, it's kind of makes sense if you logically think about it, that if somebody's new and they haven't heard about your practice before and they're coming as a result of a search to learn more about what you have to offer, that interrupting them with a big pop-up that says, would you like to schedule an appointment today, isn't the best experience for them.
Right.
They're going to want to learn more before
Right.
they choose when they want to interact with you. And so I think the best is to have it be minimized if you're going to have a chat tool. And of course, with any kind of marketing, you want to be tracking that, to every detail of that. You want to have some reporting or tracking on, so you can see, how many, are you getting conversions from that tool that you're investing in? Are they actually new conversions, or is it just different conversions? Did you used to get a phone call and now they're chatting with you? Did you used to get a, appointment form submission and now they're chatting with you? Or is it actually improving your conversions? And then, what does it do to your other engagement metrics? Like, are people leaving your site more quickly? And those kind of things. What kind of engagement interruption are you seeing? But when you think about it from a patient's perspective, that's going to give you the best sense of what that is.
What I like that you said, to really keep it from being super complicated for everyone, is exactly what you said, that Google is measuring the effectiveness of your website is by the user's experience. And that's really the same way that we recommend from customer service. When you look at all the processes, all the tools that you have, and most importantly, the usability, the ease of use for your website, is how easy do you make it for your patients or potential patients to get what they want or need. So you basically use that same philosophy in your website, and more than likely you're going to be rewarded, and those tools are going to be more useful to you, because Google's measuring it for the same exact reasons. How easy are you making it versus how difficult? So I love that. I love that perspective about it. And that is easy for people if you're going to look, kind of do your own self-audit of your website. What pop-up notice has been on for way too long that needs to either be updated or changed? And if you do have those chat functions, are they more useful or are they a pain and more obstructive?
Yeah.
And that's a great way to measure.
Yeah. The other thing to think about, which might not be immediately obvious if you're trying to think about this and you're in your office trying to think through this, is the mobile perspective. Because, again, more than 50% of traffic is from mobile typically. And so, what additional factors can impact that are, is this affecting your page load time? If you're in a poor data area, like a poor connection with your phone, and you're trying to load the website and it adds a couple seconds to the load time of your website, that's bad.
Yeah.
Like you want to optimize as much as possible the load time of your page.
So you want it to be coming up as quickly as possible. What do you see happening out there that tends to bog that down, and we're kind of the worst usual suspects of the cause for that?
Well, so anything that is loading from a third-party service or site is going to impact it. Things like a chat tool, for instance, it's going to a third-party service. It's loading this tool on your site, so that can be something that can slow down the site speed. Okay. There's lots of other things, like having unoptimized images on your page, having these scrolling, things, or video backgrounds. A lot of that can really impact your load time.
And they could potentially be causing more harm than the good that they were intended for.
Yeah, and you might think it looks great when you're on your desktop.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is cool. These are cool features. But for an end user, it's not optimal.
Okay. What else?
So the other thing is avoiding this has been increasingly important, but it's been around forever. but that's avoiding duplicate or boilerplate content on your website, because it makes you, if you have 90% of your content on your website, and especially we see this in services pages, if it's duplicate or boilerplate, it's invisible to Google, because Google looks at that as little to no value because it exists elsewhere on the web. And they also can sometimes penalize that as plagiarized content because they see it as, okay, well, this exists on all these other websites.
Right.
Why are you copying what someone else is doing?
So what you're saying, when you say duplicate content, you're meaning it's more than likely living on 50 other dental websites, the exact same content.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And we analyze this for, people who are interested in marketing. We look at kind of an overview of what their online presence looks like, and we analyze it. And we see that typically of the ones we analyze, 70% or more of the services pages we review are duplicated across 20 plus websites.
Right.
So that's that's hurting you, and it's something that Google has started looking at more and more harshly, I guess, over the last 5 years or so. And so that's something to really be conscious of. And if you think about it, having a textbook or encyclopedia definition of a service doesn't help the end user understand what you do,
right,
or how you do it, or why the way you do it is better for them,
right,
than the other dental practice they looked at. So it's really important that you have that be unique to you, original.
And it's interesting that you say that, because what I've found from time to time when I work with clients or practices that are investing a lot in external marketing and are very happy with their website, and their websites look nice. They look nice, but you can tell almost, and maybe it's just because we see so many, but it is obvious when they may have even a full blog page, but it's obvious that blog has really nothing to do with that particular practice.
Yeah.
It's more of checking a box and trying to fill those voids that most effective websites have in place. Do you see that too?
Absolutely. And the main culprits in this are the dental marketing companies themselves, because they build these content libraries, and it's way cheaper for them to sell one piece of content 100 times than to have a team of content writers review and edit and write all this content. But it's hurting you.
So if, for those that are listening or watching, are wanting to make strides to improve that content, are there one or two areas of their website for them to look first to that would be the best starting point?
Well, first, visit your website. That's the first thing, because how many people have I talked to that said, I haven't really looked at my website in a while. So your patients are looking at it, and that's their first impression of your practice. So it's worth visiting. In terms of whether it's speaking, your language, to your voice, to your audience, services pages are important, because that is what people look at if they're looking for something specific. Your homepage is the most important, because that's, people are making a decision whether they want to work with your practice or not based on your homepage.
Right.
And the second most visited page is your about page or team page, because they want to know who you are.
So the obvious most popular page is the home page, and the about page is the second most popular. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I've seen a lot of about pages that says coming soon. So there might be a huge opportunity for you. If yours still says coming soon and your website's 3 years old, maybe that's where you should start.
Yep, it's important.
What else?
All right, so this is probably the most timely. This is a today issue.
Okay.
And this is avoid ignoring accessibility on your website. So a lot of people who hear that are like, I don't know what the heck that is,
right.
and where do I even start? And frankly, it is a bit complex. Our team goes through training and certification and all this to understand this. But essentially, if someone who has a disability or a of some kind, whether that's vision impaired or hearing impaired or whatever, if they can't navigate your website to the point that they can receive the same service that someone else can, you are potentially a candidate for a lawsuit.
Wow.
And 66% of the top 500 websites have been named in a lawsuit in the last 18 months.
Wow.
Regarding accessibility.
Okay.
So it is a big deal, and it's not something. So one of the things that has been the solution, let's say in the past 5 years, is to sort of tack on a tool that sort of tries to auto apply accessibility tools, and you have this little menu that you can change the font size and things like that. Well, those tools are now being the subject of some of these lawsuits.
Really?
Because it's not natively baked into the functionality, and for some users, it's actually blocking their access to using screen readers and things like that. So it is a really important liability issue to know about. It's fairly new. I would say in the last 2 years, it's really come to prominence. And it's a bit complicated, but it's something to be aware of.
That's got to have some people going, what?
Yeah.
That's got to be really overwhelming. So, number one, review your own website to see, are pop-ups and all of those add-ons really blocking the accessibility to the site to everyone to the point that you could be getting penalized in search. Number two, beware and be wary of where you may have canned content that could also be creating obstacles for the ultimate success of the website to do what you want it and need it to do. Starting with the home page, the about page, and then really diving into what that services page needs to be for you, of who you want finding you, right? And then to make sure you are accessible universally to everyone. That's a lot to take on. So if that is something, if any of those, or if it's all of those, and if that's overwhelming to anyone, that could seem like a large project or a big undertaking. So what could you recommend that perhaps we do or that they could do to get on the right track?
Sure. Well, so one thing I wanted to sort of preface to say is that, a lot of this is something that has changed, recently. Some of it's changed very recently. A lot of it has changed pretty recently. So even our clients who have, we built a website for 4 or 5 years ago, needs to, those need to be reviewed and revised and things like that. So what we've really shifted our approach to websites in general, and this is in the past year or so, to where, because there are so many things to sort of stay on top of, and because people are using websites differently now with things like chat tools and HIPAA forms, things like that, we've really shifted to where, with our web platform now, it's an ongoing tool. It's a subscription that when you subscribe to it, we do all the work that's required to keep you up to speed and up to date with it now. And so that includes creating custom content, making sure it meets accessibility standards, making sure that it's optimized for the user experience. And so we don't, where a lot of times there might be an upfront fee to set up something like that, we don't charge that. We do all that work for you, but it's in a flat monthly fee, and it's relatively affordable. So instead of facing a big choice up front of, I'm going to be spending thousands of dollars just to get started, now you can start for way less than $1,000,
Yes.
and you'll have what you need on an ongoing basis. So that's something that we have changed our approach to, and we feel like it's important because of these types of frequent changes that someone have
Yes.
this as a subscription, so it's constantly being updated and changed and updated.
And you have people that this is what they do, staying
Yeah.
up to speed with not only the necessities of your online presence and your website, but even the trends, the best practices for websites. It can be very valuable so that you don't have to do the work. You have other people doing that heavy lifting for you. And it's also, I think, important to remember, if this feels overwhelming to anyone listening to it, thinking, I didn't even know about this, that websites are one of those pieces of the puzzle of your business, of your practice, that are always going to be evolving. It's always going to be updating and changing. And so that's something that we need to just, we don't want to be surprised by that, because as the user changes the way that they behave with online search, or from going from desktops to phones, and the accessibility and the convenience factor and how easy they want things to be, that is always going to evolve. So it's important that you stay tapped into your website, just like Nate said, to check it and make sure. It is such a powerful piece to your overall practice health and growth. I mean, we consider it one of those pivotal things that if you have a great one, it can make such a big difference in attracting the right new patients, the right amount of new patients, and the right new patients for you. So any thoughts also on that, Nate, as we come to a close, but any thoughts on really the importance of that website in general? If there are some doubters out there, doubters are people that just get frustrated with having to keep up with this. Any messages about it?
Well, a well-maintained website, first of all, if you have any concerns about changes in the landscape of your dental competition,
right,
look at their website and their website investments. A lot of times people are investing in their online presence heavily. And so to stay competitive, your website really is a salesperson for your practice, and it represents you as a brand. Many people, that's where they make a decision about your practice. You may have a great looking office, you might have great signage, you might have the friendliest front desk staff, but if they don't get that from your website,
right,
you've lost them. So your website is really, really critical from that perspective. It's also really critical for visibility in Google. So if you are hoping to attract people for certain types of services,
right,
you're specializing in, cosmetic or even, let's say, orthodontics or something like that, people are doing their research first online. And so you want to be in the mix of their research. You want to be an answer to some of that research. And so it is really critical, and it's hard enough for me to keep on top of everything that's changing, much less somebody who that's not their full-time job.
That's right.
So that's why we are an advocate, and that's why we are here to help practices. Yep.
So go check out your website. When was the last time you took a look? Do you have some things that need to be adjusted? And ask yourself the question, how easy does your website make it for people to access what they're looking for, what they want, what they need? Is it a true advocate of the brand that you want out in your community? And are we doing more harm than good in some of those add-ons or some of those pop-ups that you may have incorporated in your website at this time? It may be time for a cleanup, for a refresh, and obviously, if you need help with that and you're interested in having an ongoing support system in keeping your website fresh, relevant, and up to date, email us at info@jmsn.com or visit Jameson's website, jmsn.com, and Nate would be your person to connect with and talk through how we could help get you on the right track. So Nate, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with me today. The website is a key piece of your external presence and your ability to develop relationships before patients ever even walked in the door. So putting a priority on it is key in our opinion. So I hope that you'll take a look and that this was helpful. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you next time.